what's going on, everybody? So I don't know if if you're new to the channel or if you're new to this car. I am currently in the process of retuning the car through Purple Drink Tuning or PD tuning, and I'm sure everybody knows this already if you keep up. But unfortunately, we have ran into some issues regarding not necessarily the turbo, but the turbo flange adapter that converts that 5-bolt flange on the Garrett turbo to a V-band flange that connects to the downpipe. There's 5 bolts that go around that adapter that bolt to the turbo, and unfortunately this has happened to me multiple times, and I should have just done what I'm going to do now the first time, but I didn't really think it through at the time, and I didn't really have the ability to do what I'm doing now because I had it on a lift, and it was all last minute. I just did what I could to get it back into the car and seal it. But I have a major exhaust leak before the O2 sensor, and it's causing, especially on cold start, it sounds awful, and the AFRs are terrible. They're super lean because it's leaking before the O2, and it's causing incorrect AFR measurements pretty much. So before I continue tuning the car, I want to address this issue, make sure nothing bad happens to the car regarding this issue. And I know there's people out there that aren't gonna know how to pinpoint this problem because I knew how to just because I've experienced this before. And I know when you start getting very strange lean AFR readings, typically this problem is one of those things if you have a bigger turbo with the ATP kit. So I noticed the issue when I was data logging the car. I got a revision and it didn't really seem like the power had increased really. It kind of felt like it was a little bit more tame than it should be. But I looked at, if you see, I have all the the data log information right here, but I saw the tuner threw fuel at the car. But at the same time, after I had gone out that night and data logged, I heard this weird exhaust noise. It almost sounded like a secondary spool coming from the turbo. I thought my turbo had, something bad had happened to the turbo, but when I turned the car off, everything was still spinning. The turbo was still spinning, I could hear it. So I let the car sit, and then, the next morning I started to go to work, and then it was very loud, very apparent that there was an exhaust leak. So I got under the car, looked, and sure enough, those 5 bolts had loosened again, and I'm having to address this issue again. And the only way to do it with, because I have my turbo, the turbo blanket on the turbo, so it's blocking those bolts, and the easiest way to do it is just to take the turbo out. And I have some things that I wanted to do to it anyways while it's out, so I might as well just take care of those things, make sure it doesn't happen again. So I know it's dark, but I don't know if the mic will pick it up. I haven't started it in over a day actually, so we're just gonna see if we can hear, or see if the mic can pick up the exhaust leak. It's actually pretty noticeable. I don't know if it's picking it up, but you can definitely hear the exhaust escaping from that flange. All right, so for anybody who is unfamiliar with the channel or the car, this is my Focus. It is fully built. The head's not built. It's stock head, but I built the engine myself. It's fully bolt on. It's got the Garrett 2867R Gen 2 with the 0.64 AR. So it's a smaller AR, but it's for what I want it to do. All 3 engine mounts, both Damon catch cans for the pressure side of the PCVs and the non-pressure side. I have a Guardian Angel V3 with a 4-bar map sensor on there. It's not hooked up right now because we're still tuning on the 3-bar. This is from when I was previously trying to tune at Delicious Tuning. This has been an ongoing issue with them. And the only reason I'm going through with Purple Drink Tuning is because, he knows what he's doing. Ryan knows what he's doing with these cars. And Delicious Tuning did not. So that's the bottom line behind that. But I have auxiliary fueling. It is not 4-port, but it is the extra 2 injectors, so it's definitely a help when it comes to the fueling. And I think it's definitely going to suffice for where I want to be. I want to be around 450 wheel horsepower with this car, and I think that's totally doable. Another thing that's worth mentioning too is I did an AC delete, so I have no more condenser, no more compressor. I did a balance shaft delete as well. That's another one that really changed the car. It has an ATC 6-puck stage 3 clutch on it with the flywheel, and it's absolutely amazing. It almost feels stock, maybe just a little bit stiffer, but almost feels stock, and the engagement is almost very similar to the stock engagement as well. But also, one thing that I would like to show people that you probably haven't seen. So I now have 2 seats. I got another Sprint seat. Unfortunately, I don't know if anybody out there was looking at Sprint seats, but the model itself, I guess the framing of the seat has not changed, but the outside skin was redesigned. This is the previous model, which everybody's probably familiar with, and then they remodeled it with this different looking skin, and it has, you know, sections of the seat where it's like more grippy for your shoulders and your butt, and then where it says Sprint is slightly different as well. Still says Sparko, but that stitching, the white stitching's gone, and it's just replaced with like a black material. But regardless of all that, our goal for tonight and tomorrow, hopefully I just, you know, can just knock this out in a couple hours. I feel like at this point, this is my only option so that these freaking bolts don't keep backing out. I figured I would use red Loctite. I mean, I could, but, you know, I don't really need to if we're going to be tacking it. But, you know, I'll think of what I have to do once I have the turbo out, and I'll figure it out. But as of right now, I'm going to get this thing out. I'm going to start working on it. I'm not really going to show you too much of how to take it out, because when you're actually installing this turbo for the first time, there's a lot more involved than what I'm going to have to do. So, you know, just know that when you're taking the turbo off, you have to drain the coolant. So if you want to reuse your coolant, you got to save it. It's not that much that comes out, but, you know, have something ready to catch it so you can put it back into the car. That, and then for me, on this one, I'm going to take out the passenger side axle. So I'm going to have to drain my transmission. And that is just going to make my life that much easier to get the turbo out. I could probably get it out without taking the lower engine mount out, but I'll see what it's like when I get down there. So yeah, if you have the correct Allen for the drain and the fill, you can actually use an 8mm wrench to loosen and tighten these, because it gets pretty tight in some of these areas, as you see. So you can't really fit a ratchet right here. So that's a really easy way of doing this in these tight spaces. And I figured, you know, might as well show you guys what we're dealing with here. I already took the oil feed off of the turbo itself. I still have to take both coolant lines off. And then there's the oil return right here. I already got the charge pipe out. There's the hose right here. And charge pipes over there, yes. I am still running stock charge pipes, but, you know, not really too concerned about that right now. So what I'm gonna do is I'm working on getting this axle out. I already took the bracket cap off, and if you see, the axle is like directly in the way of the turbo. So I figured if you take the axle out, it would make this a hell of a lot easier to get out. I already disconnected the downpipe. So you don't have to fully disconnect it. You just have to take the bracket off and, you know, just leave it back there. Just get it out of the way, get the V-band clamp off. And right there are the nuts and the bolts that ran themselves off. And you can really see them right there. So that's one nut right there, and then right behind it is a bolt that has ran itself off as well. So it's supposed to be close. As you can see threads right here, so that's not a good sign. And then you can see the shaft of the bolt back there. So this is backed off, and that's what's causing my my exhaust leak. And you can even see right there behind the turbo blanket, exhaust gas has been leaking. It's all black. So it's a perfect explanation of what's going on right here. So currently I am draining the coolant, catching it in this bucket right here. I'm just kind of doing it slow just so I don't make a huge mess. But yeah, it's coming from I believe that's the coolant return line or feed line, whatever. It's one of the coolant lines that goes into the turbo. I'm just letting it drip into here, and I'm just gonna let it dribble, maybe unscrew it a little bit more to help it flow more. But as you see, after I remove that axle, you have plenty of space to get this turbo out, and I just feel like after all the times that I've done it, this is probably the easiest it's been to get to this point, and I feel like it's gonna be super easy to take this thing off. As you see, obviously, I've managed to get the turbo out of the car. It's only connected by this one coolant line, but all the coolant is drained out of the engine, the block, and same with this line. Once I disconnect it, it's a 19. Once I disconnect it, I could take the turbo off, and then we can look farther into it and kind of go into where that exhaust part that I'm talking about, where it disconnected. So yeah, still doing good. Really, I'd say, yeah, it's about 3 years old, around 50,000 miles on this turbo. Still pretty good, still really good. It's perfect. So now that we got the turbo out of the car, it's kind of time to assess the damage here. You can see, because it's been leaking, it's been just shooting exhaust gases into the turbo blanket, which the turbo blanket really hasn't liked too much. So I'm gonna go ahead and take it off. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to reuse it. It looks kind of shot at this point. I mean, it burned pretty good. Yeah, so that's definitely gonna be a no. There's coolant in here, as you see, and it's just falling apart. And you know, I mean, some people would say it's okay to reuse, but I'm just gonna go ahead and count it as a loss and learn from my lessons and of not, you know, taking care of this the way I am now. Look, I haven't touched any of these right here, and they're all, you know, finger tight. I can turn them with my hands. Just those two for the most part. I'm sure they're all loose. Yep, there's another loose one right here. So this is one of the weak spots for at least this kit. And it's one of the issues that I ran into multiple times. Yeah, see, the gasket's like not sitting in there. But I just wanted to make sure I took care of this problem before it got worse. And I started to lose these bolts, and you know, it would just completely disconnect. I'm gonna get some new hardware for this, probably tomorrow. It's kind of late, but I'm gonna get some new hardware for this, and then I'm gonna work on finding somebody to tack weld the bolts to the flange for me. All right, so it's the next day. I hit up my friend Alexis, and he's actually gonna help me get this all welded and ready to go. But there's a couple things that I need to order for this, just because, you know, things like this. This is the oil feed fitting. The threads are just not really happy anymore. So I figured while everything is out, I could replace what I need to. I figured might as well, because I don't want to have to take it out again. But yeah, we're gonna head over to Alexis's house, get this whole thing squared away, and see if we can get it back on the car as soon as possible. All right, so it's been a couple days since the last video clip. I managed to paint the intake housing of the turbo. It actually looks pretty good. I just did it really quick, but I thought it would, you know, give it a little spice. But I know I mentioned earlier in the video this piece right here. Yeah, this fitting right here is not really that happy. So I ordered a brand new fitting right here. So this is the brand new oil feed fitting, and it's stainless. And I believe this one was either brass or some other soft metal that's not is going to be as strong as this one. So all of these fittings, this is the coolant fitting, oil fitting, and the return as well. Everything like that is installed. There's one coolant line that's still in the car that has a banjo bolt that bolts to the back side of the turbo, but I ordered new gaskets as well, so I just didn't want to have any weird leaks. And for these gaskets, I actually bored it out a little bit because these ones, they fit the turbo, you know, the bolts and everything like that, but the middle is a little bit too small for the opening, so I just kind of bored the hole out a little bit just so we didn't run into any I guess flow issues regarding the return, because it's not pressurized, so it's just gonna get blocked by this small hole. So everything's taken care of with the turbo, and now I just can, you know, start throwing it in the car and get it all back together, and then we can see how much of a difference it's actually gonna make having a turbo that's actually sealed up. And now I can kind of show you guys what we did here. All finalized. So all 5 of the bolt and 1 nut locations, all of them have been welded. So there's no way, I mean, there shouldn't be any way that this housing should come off anymore. So I mean, if you have this kit, and I know they come with updated versions that have these wedge lock washers, which make it really hard for the bolts to back out. But still, this is going to be a problem regarding your big turbo ATP kit. So yeah, that's just kind of the reality of it, unless you get a different method of, you know, maybe you just get a straight V-band off of the turbo with an external wastegate housing. That would probably be best. So yeah. All right, so now that everything is squared away turbo-wise, I'm gonna start installing it into the car. So I'll probably get back to you guys when I'm kind of towards the end of putting this back into the car. So now we are officially at the point where we can start the car. I have all the boost lines hooked up, all the oil feed return, coolant feed, coolant return, everything's hooked up, ready to start. I topped it off with a little bit more oil because it did drop just a tad. Put what coolant I had in the car. It's a little bit over max right now, but it will drop. I do have some extra right over there, so we should be good with the coolant. Yeah, but once I get it up to temp, I'm gonna take it out and make sure it all works good and give you guys a show. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and start it and get the coolant bleeding. This is gonna be a rough start, hasn't been started in a while. And you can immediately tell there's no more exhaust leak. Whereas before it was very prominent that there was an exhaust leak coming from like right here, so that's completely gone now. All right, so as you guys saw, we did go out. The car actually surprised me. It's substantially faster than it used to be before I fixed this problem. So if you run into this issue, you know, if you hear an exhaust leak or you notice, you know, lean conditions, or your car's just not really running that, you know, as it should be regarding air fuel mixture, this is most likely going to be your issue. And like I said, I fixed it, and immediately 29 psi of boost in comparison to what we were limited by. I think it was 26 or 27 max psi I was seeing before I fixed this issue. So closing that exhaust section up and then allowing the pressure to build up more, I guess obviously allows the car to build more boost. And it actually holds boost now, instead of holding it and then tapering off when you get to the higher RPMs. Instead of doing that, it feels like it used to, and it really makes me happy. And yeah, I feel like if anybody else is struggling with this problem, or they feel like, you know, my car's slow or whatever, if you're big turbo, double check this. And if you have the ATP kit, double check this and make sure you're not going to run into the same problem I did. Speaking of the whole, you know, being faster and everything, I am in the process of tuning it. I started recording that video before this one, and then this just came up out of nowhere, so I figured I'd record it and show you guys. But keep an eye out for the tuning video, because we're not finished tuning yet, which is crazy because the car is very fast. But we're shooting for 450 wheel horsepower, and that's the most power the car's ever had. I know it can make more with a bigger turbo and you know 4-port auxiliary fuel. I eventually plan to do that just so I can run full E85 and be safe with it and not have to really worry about like blending or mixing fuel. But until that point, you know, this is what we're dealing with. 450 is more than enough to have some fun with the car on track and actually, you know, be competitive, not competitive, but you know, get a good time on the tracks that we go to and have fun with the car. So if you made it to this point in this video, I mean, I know it's kind of like it's not really necessary, but at the same time, I haven't seen a video regarding this issue and this turbo kit itself and, you know, things coming loose, and I still haven't seen anybody make a video on it. And, you know, I went in pretty in depth with this one. I didn't show you how to do it, but went in depth, showed you guys what to look out for and, you know, what can actually happen if you do fix a problem like this. And obviously it benefited the car. So I'd like to thank you guys very much for watching, and you know, if you feel free to leave a like and subscribe. You know, it helps us out and on the channel, and you know, I love to make content for you guys, and I want you guys to be happy with what I'm putting out. So let me know what you guys want to see. If you want to, you can go to our website and support us there. We have shirts, stickers, and hats for sale as well. And follow us on Instagram if you want to keep up with all the other stuff we do. And then follow me on Instagram if you want to see more personal stuff with me in this car and, you know, what I do with my daily life. But thank you very much for watching, and we will see you guys in the next video.